Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to West Command TV, the tallest man, Black Africa. There is something about the Somali community in Kenya. The Somali hold a key secret about the politics of this nation. If you look at our country today, you agree with me that the population of the Somali community has been increasing in a way that cannot be imagined, that cannot even be compared with any other community in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you have ever asked yourself why the government has made it very, very possible to have most of the government institutions to be dominated by the Somali. I suspect that the Somali community could have overtaken the Luhya, the Kaba, and the Luo community. I suspect that the population of the Somali community could be very, very close to the population of the Murima nation. In the year 2022, there were issues about IBC Secretariat being dominated by the Somali community. And when you look at the people who hold key positions in the IBC, you realize, or you agree with me, it is the Somali community. And this one leads to the question, could we be having polling stations in Somali? Because I'm looking at the way Kenya and Somalia have been interacting, and we seem to be operating an open border policy, whereby the Somali can cross to Kenya when they want and they can leave when they want. That's why I'm posing that question. Is there a possibility that IBC could open polling stations in Somali, whereby the Somali community could be voting and be used to rig elections? That is food for thought. And that is one way of actually rigging the election. A neighboring country can allow a regime to open polling station in its country, and voters in those stations can vote, especially along the border. Because you cannot tell me that the government has not found it necessary to control the influx of the Somali community in Kenya. With all due respect to the Somali community, because most of them are very friendly. When you look again at our security system, you agree with me, they are also dominated by the Somali community. From the DCI to the NIS, you see, like now the NIS is headed by people of Somali ancestry. And this one tells you that, like now the NIS is key. And it is the Interior Ministry that can secure any election. And that is why William Samoei Ruto is finding it very, very difficult to get the right person in the Interior Ministry, the CS for Interior, because he's the person who is going to secure the elections. He's the person who will even determine if William Samoei Ruto will be the next president. Is the person who will be knowing what the IBC is doing through NIS, is a person who will be able to tell even when rigging is taking place, and the person who is going to provide security during the election. Yesterday, another person of Somali descent, that is for Ethics in Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, was actually approved by Parliament as a chairman of the commission, Ethics in Anti-Corruption Commission. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Remember, even Duale, were it not for the military guys who were not comfortable with Duale, he could be the person in charge of the defense forces. But I understand the defense guys were not very, very comfortable with him. And William Samoei Ruto was advised to take him to the environment docket. So you can see there is something about the Somali community. If you go to Isili, that is a small Mogadishu, the enterprising nature of the Somali community is very admirable. If you look at the way they turned Somali, not Somali, Isili, from an ordinary estate to an estate with skyscrapers, malls, whatnot. If you go to many estates, in many towns, including Kajiado, you realize that, like now, Kajiado is dominated by the Somali community, if you don't know. And they take their children to high-ed schools when the locals cannot be able to manage. The population of the Somali community could be very, very huge. This is because they allow their people, their men, to practice what you call polygamy, where a man is allowed to marry more than one wife. And they end up having many children. So as the other community are struggling to live without children, because that is the order of the day now, marriages, they will fight, and people are no longer interested in children, especially the new one now, those who are born in 20s, 2021, 1998, they're no longer interested in children. They are just about their life. And the Somali community is actually increasing at a very, very high rate. When I look at the Somali community, I realize that these guys are very rich. Very rich. And the big question is, could they also be financing some candidates in this country? Nothing wrong with that. But there's a possibility they could also be financing some of these candidates. Because you realize that they have been given priorities over other communities in this country. With all due respect to the Somali community. Again, it is a very secretive community. You may not tell what they're up to. And before you know what is happening, you just see an estate coming up, building coming up. You see them buying houses, flats. And before the community knows what is happening, they have dominated the area. So there is a secret in this community. And the government refused, I think the last time we had a census, the government refused to publish the actual number of the Somali community. I don't want to challenge anybody who can come here today and tell us the actual number of the Somali community. I'm telling you, they could be number 2. Very close to the Kikuyu community. Very close. Because you find them everywhere, in every sector. Even if you go to now Tomboya Street, you find there are so many. If you go to Ruzuri Avenue, there are so many. Everywhere you go, there are so many, including the estates. And what does this tell you? That as people talk about numbers in elections, because that's the issue here, let us remember the Somali community. Whoever is going to win the support of the Somali community can easily clinch the presidency, can easily win the president. In the past, they have been voting for Raila Amolo Odinga. But without Raila Amolo Odinga, I don't know whom they are going to vote for. Is it Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka? Is it Babu Owino? Is it Okia Mtata? Is it Mukisa Kitui? And I think Mukisa Kitui, people should start thinking about Mukisa Kitui. I don't know why I think that the next president is likely to come from Western. Okia Mtata is there. Maraga can also be there. There is also Mukisa Kitui, a very good person. And I don't know what you think, but from where I sit, the Somali community cannot be ignored. Bye-bye.